Happy October, everyone. Alex from Sandro Says here, and we are back with part 2 of my Halloween retrospective. In today's video, we are going over the Thorn Trilogy.
I think Michael is under the influence of an evil rune. Thorn.
As I was watching these movies, it kind of occurred to me that the Blumhouse trilogy, even though it was planned as a trilogy from the start, is way less coherent than the Thorn Trilogy. And the Thorn Trilogy was made as 3 separate movies by 3 separate teams across 2 decades, and I don't know. It's kind of fascinating when you think about it. So let's get into it. Let's start with Halloween 4, or the one that actually didn't know it was part of the Thorn Trilogy until 10 years later. Back in 1988, evil had been dormant since, I believe, 1981, with the first sequel to Halloween. That was the last time we had seen Michael Myers. Halloween 3 came out in 83, I believe, but it didn't have Michael Myers in it, so Michael Myers had basically been dead for the entirety of the slasher rise of the 80s, with both Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger among all the random slashers that came out. To me, sadly, this is one of the weaker entries in the series. So let's go do what I did last week. I'll go into the good first, and then we'll cover the bad, and I'll give my overall thoughts on each movie. First of all, I actually love Michael Myers with the bandage in this movie. I think him having the bandage on his head is actually better than the mask. Obviously, in retrospect, with the mask they went with. But in general, the mask had gotten blown up, burnt, whatever at this point, so there was no reason for him to go and find the exact same mask again. So instead of just giving him a generic mask, maybe having the bandage would have been pretty cool. I thought that would have been a nice way to do things. Loomis is pretty realistic here. He didn't go off the deep end like he does in 5. He's still pretty cool. He's not harassing children and scaring people out in public except for the weird scar on his face. So he's a great protagonist. He's wary. He's a little curious of what's going on. He's definitely nervous for everyone's safety. He's annoyed that people don't believe him. He's like, 10 years doesn't mean that, this is 10 years doesn't mean that things are fixed all of a sudden. Michael Myers is gone. It's like, no, he's still out there. We have to be really careful. They got very lucky with Jamie Lloyd's actress, Danielle Harris. I was actually a fan of hers when I first saw her in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead when I was a kid. That was one of me and my brother's favorite movies growing up. I don't know why. But anyway, I love Danielle Harris from that movie, so seeing her in retrospect in the Halloween movies was pretty awesome. She is in 4 and 5 and is actually one of the stars of the series outside of Jamie Lee Curtis. So she was a great addition. We didn't really see her coming. The opening at the beginning, a lot of people laud this for its atmospheric feel, and I have to agree. I think the sun setting over this desolate fall landscape is really kind of unnerving. You know something ominous is happening or coming, so it's actually pretty great. I think that's a great opening. The scene at the gas station is downright creepy. Loomis, it doesn't last long, unfortunately, but Loomis walking in, being stalked by Michael. At this point in the series, it's not unrealistic to think that they might kill off Dr. Sam Loomis. So him wandering in that gas station, completely isolated, where the gas station has already been wiped out by Michael, very similar to Halloween 2018, it's kind of an eerie feeling. Of course, it ends with Loomis shooting at a ghost and then the ghost disappears. I don't know, that whole thing. I don't really know how to explain all that. And the ending of the movie isn't the worst. If you've already shot him and then blown him up, you really have to have, I guess, a team of hillbillies mixed with cops shooting him with shotguns and guns. So I think that's the best they could do. I don't really know at that point. And now the weaker part of the movie. The great opening, I think, is immediately ruined by the fact that they go from this desolate fall landscape with the sun setting to all of a sudden they're in the middle of a forest and it's pouring rain. It might as well be in a different state for all we can tell, especially because that original scene with the desolate landscape, we never come back to that. So it's not like this is revisited later. These are places that Michael stalks. In the first movie at the end, they show all the places Michael had been in that movie. So I thought it was a reverse of that, where, maybe this is a place where the finale, happens or something. No, it was just random shots, which at that point, if you're just taking shots to create atmosphere, you could shoot anything. You could shoot up a graveyard, and it has nothing to do with the movie. So I thought that was just a bit of a cop-out to make it an atmospheric scene, but it has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. Side note, as far as Michael Myers on this, I know I'm not really judging decisions in these retrospectives, but why on earth would they be taking him from a maximum security prison back to the asylum where he already escaped from? On its face, that makes no sense. There's no reason why he just couldn't break out of this prison or have them transferring him. The idea that they're transferring him to a lower security place, again, is just ridiculous. Rachel. Everyone talks about Rachel Carruthers in this. I found her to be a nothing character. I really didn't care about her high school drama. We've already seen a lot of people get murdered in these series. We know the stakes are a lot higher than her not getting a date with Brady. So to us, it's kind of like, who really cares? No offense. I didn't connect with Rachel. Jamie is the clear star, and the problem with having two stars then is they kind of both have plot armor, so two of the people we're following are not going to be injured whatsoever. And that leads to my next point. There's no real friend group to stalk. We meet Brady, we meet the officer's daughter, we have a couple other friends. Most of the people you meet at the beginning of the movie in the drugstore, you don't see the rest of the movie. So the only people that really get stalked and killed are Rachel's few friends, and at that point, they're locked in a house with the killer, which is a cool concept on its head. Like, hey, the killer's locked in here with us. We don't know it. Oh man, he's anywhere. But they ruined it because they showed earlier in the movie, or earlier in, I guess, 2 scenes before, whatever, Michael was hiding in the cop car. So he, trailed them, and they knew he was. So we, as the audience, know Michael's there. That's only scary if he's in the shadows or something. In this movie, Michael is constantly just being shown in full light, and then when he finally goes on his scary rampage at the end, it's people locked in a house, and he's making all this noise in a house with no electricity. No one notices it, and it's just him basically brute forcing his way through a house, where the better Michael Myers that we're all interested in and know is Michael Myers, where he's stalking people and slowly taking them out and having fun with his kills. This is just him going Jason Voorhees on a house. It's not that interesting and not that exciting. There's so little use of backlighting in this movie. It's just everything's flat, everything's colored. His mask is always just completely shown. I think you'll see in later movies, especially in the later 2 Thorn Trilogy movies, that his mask is never really shown in full light. It's always kind of like, half darkness. It really builds up the character and the tension. I think as having it blasted in light makes this movie not look so good. Something about the film grain also. It makes it look like it was filmed on VHS. I don't know what the deal is. The next one's filmed in '89. Both the previous sequels look better than this. So this one stands out for a number of reasons for the movie just not being as good as the previous. And I think Michael Myers himself is not as scary in this movie. In the first 2 movies, you see a lot of point of view shots that you're not even sure are Michael Myers. They're kind of panning across. Are you just seeing the landscape, or are you seeing what Michael sees? There's an open window. Did he sneak in through that? There's an open door. Did he sneak in through that? It's not apparent what happened. In this movie, they just show, here's Michael's point of view. Here's the heavy breathing. He's staring at someone through the window. That's where he is right now. That's not nearly as scary as letting your mind trick you into wondering where he is. So I think that's an unfortunate step that or an unfortunate choice that they made with this movie. So all in all, this was probably one of my least favorite in the franchise. It always has been. Ever since I was a kid, it didn't sit right with me. And that's the awkward part, because then people hear, wait a minute, you liked Halloween 5? Yes, I loved Halloween 5. I don't think it's one of the best movies in the series, but it's definitely one of the better sequels. And let's get into it. Halloween 5 is a step back into the right direction after Halloween 4. Halloween 4, like I said, it became more of just a generic horror movie. It didn't really seem like a Michael Myers movie because of all the issues, the weird mask, the guy in the hockey pads. I don't know how they saw a guy in hockey pads and said that's okay for the screen, but people have covered that ad nauseum. I don't need to pile on. So what we get more in Halloween 5 is we get some more creative shots again. We get some more panning shots. We get Michael stalking people. We get Michael in the background moving where people don't notice him, things like that. We get some actual nighttime. It's not an overcast day for 3/4 of the movie. So I think that it makes a lot of creative choices that bring us back to where we should be. So let's get into it. At this point, yes, make him supernatural. Go full ass. Don't half-ass anything. Go whole ass. Make him supernatural, because if you've shot him, you've blown him up, you've shot him again, you've dropped him down a well, you threw explosives at him, there needs to be an explanation. The audience is wearing thin on this. Wow, is he a man or isn't he? He's clearly not a man if he survives all of this. So you need to come up with something. So I applaud them for at least attempting to maybe, start a thread here. They didn't want to answer all the questions in this movie. Maybe they thought they were getting a sequel. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. Clearly they didn't get one because we didn't see one for 7 years, or 6 years. And they kind of continued the threads, but it wasn't the same creative group. So But either way, I applaud them for attempting to try to explain in a semi-realistic fashion why Michael is doing all this stuff. It doesn't have to be the best explanation in the world because we're also 5 movies in at this point. So him just stalking random people, even though they're family members, it's wearing thin. The lighting is way more dynamic. Like I said before, the mask is rarely flat in this movie. So I just want to show some examples of that here. The movie's at nighttime. That really helps. You're giving people to root for and against. You like some of the friends of Tina, and well, I like Tina. I think she's a good addition. You like Rachel. You root for Rachel to survive in the beginning, even when she's stalked. Spitz is an okay character. You at least have people that you can follow. They're not all just thrown into one meat grinder and killed in a row. There's a little bit of, intrigue. Who's killed? When are they killed? Is that Michael over here? So I think they did a much better job in this movie. The scenes in the house with both Rachel and Tina being stalked, those are scary. Michael in the car with Tina, we hadn't seen anything like that before. That was pretty, that was a really tense scene. And the attack at the house at the end, even though we knew that young Jamie was unlikely to be injured, the scene in the laundry chute is really memorable with the knife going through and all that stuff. So I think it's overall, this movie has a lot more going for it than the previous entry. As far as what's not so great, how dare they leave out the Dr. Death intro? As people know or don't know, this movie had some rewrites, some reshoots. The original intro is Michael Myers survives the shooting from the previous movie. He floats down a river, which is probably the silliest shot and scene in the entire series, Michael enjoying himself on a lazy river. But anyway, he happens upon this hut where a hermit's living there, and the hermit keeps him alive for a year. A little strange. In the other cut, the original cut, this guy named Dr. Death finds him, heals him, puts the thorn tattoo on and performs all sorts of rituals. And then on Halloween, Michael wakes up and kills Dr. Death. So there's a reason at least why this thorn stuff happened. It wasn't just magic on its own. It was this guy decided to start messing with him. So again, I know people don't like Michael Myers having people, take control of him, but it is an interesting concept that, he's getting powered up by something else. That might help explain this. So why is Jamie mimicking Michael Myers? It's okay if she has a psychic connection with him, but when she starts putting like the mask on and stuff, it's a little too campy for me. I think this movie didn't need that. You could have had her just having freakouts and maybe writing what she saw, but mimicking the actual actions, come on, that's a little much. What the hell was this ending? Why is there a prison break for Michael Myers? In what universe do we need to have a gangster with a Tommy gun breaking Michael Myers out of prison? I know they were trying to set up this Man in Black thing, but Michael Myers is shown to be more than capable of getting out of prison, out of all sorts of situations. So having him sit there twiddling his thumbs in chains, almost waiting for the Man in Black to save him is, that's just tough to watch. And I honestly think that was a kind of a ballsy thing to do for a sequel with no plan. Like, none of these movies had a plan for the next one. 4 had no plan for 5. They were like, maybe Jamie's the killer, maybe she's not. Michael's down a well, who knows what happens there. This one, they're like, let's have Michael break out of jail with a Tommy gun and take Jamie. Like, what were they? They had no plan for what was going on, and it doesn't seem like they gave a shit. So, pluses and minuses on that for both being ballsy and not really helping out the studio. Or the character or the franchise. But anyway. All right. Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Now this one, as everyone knows, has 2 different cuts. I'm going to talk about them interchangeably. I enjoy both cuts. I think you should watch both if you're a fan of Halloween. I grew up, obviously, with the theatrical cut. The director's cut was kind of through the 2000s, something that you saw in grainy stills, or you could get a copy of a scene, and it was on eBay for crazy amounts of money. And finally, when they started releasing their own versions of it, I have the Shout Factory 4K version. Phenomenal. So just watch both so you can compare them. There are different hues to the movie. One seems different color grading than the other. It's obviously different scenes, a whole different ending, more focus on the Thorn cult in one than the other. So I don't really want to go into the differences. Again, there's a ton of videos on YouTube breaking down what the differences are. I don't want to be that guy. I just want to go over what I like about these movies and what I don't like. I think the movie starts with a phenomenal chase scene. Oh my God, has you right off the bat, like, worrying about this woman, even though it's Jamie Lloyd and it's not really Jamie because of the issues they had behind the scenes with Danielle Harris. I think it's this woman that's just, she's running in socks in the rain and she's trying to escape. There's this man that it looks like, oh, there's someone that can help, and then he gets his head snapped. It's she in the just a phenomenal chase scene right off the bat, which you usually don't see in these movies. Usually they build things up a little bit before it starts. This one, right off the bat, boom, chase scene, let's get into it. So I give them credit for that. I think this is a great representation of the evolution of Tommy Doyle. This is a more realistic Tommy Doyle to me than the one we see in Halloween Kills. I don't think Tommy Doyle would have witnessed what happened when he was an 8-year-old and all of a sudden become a militant, crazy person ready to bash in Michael's head with a bat. I think he'd be more curious about what happened, scared, not ready to attack Michael head on. More like, let me figure this out so that I can help people, save themselves from Michael, which is how Paul Rudd portrayed it, which I thought was awesome. I actually saw Paul Rudd in Clueless when I was a kid. I think I went when I was like 9 to see Clueless. So who'd have known that Paul Rudd was, in this movie a couple months before? I believe he was actually auditioning for Clueless while he was filming this, which is pretty crazy. So I think there's some great legitimate stalking scenes in this. I think the scenes where he's hunting the Strode mother in the house alone. I think the scene where he's in the I believe in the asylum, he's chasing some people. There's just some great scenes of tension of Michael. Oh man, Michael's after me. What's he going to do? And one of my favorite scenes in the whole series is when Kara seemingly knocks him out and then she has to walk over him. I remember seeing that as a kid and just being terrified of like, he's going to wake up and grab her right now. Like as a kid, you don't realize that certain people have plot armor and will survive. So this was actually the first one I saw when it was new because I was too young for the other ones. So this one would come on at like 10 p.m. at night, and I'd always get really scared by the opening scenes, and I'd finally force my way to sit through it. And that's how it kind of was with all these movies. But this was the only one that came out, boom, and I was there when it first happened. So that was pretty awesome. Again, if we're making him supernatural, having a cult worship him, fine. I don't know what to say. I think at this point there are people crazy enough that would say, hey, maybe this guy's doing something good for society. There's always someone that'll twist things in the wrong way. So having a cult that worships Michael Myers is not the worst thing in the world. And I like that he's not just walking around with a knife, with like a knife out like this. In 5, a lot, there's scenes, I forgot to mention this, but in 5, there's a couple scenes, let me put one in here, where he's just standing there with a knife, like a statue or like a Spirit Halloween decoration. In this one, he's back to just grabbing what's around him, killing them. There's an awesome scene with an axe, which is brutal. At one point, he just electrocutes the guy. He's attacking people with his hands again. He's not just always walking around with a butcher knife. I think that that might be his signature weapon, but I think it's a little lame to always go right back to the butcher knife. And Loomis is great in this. I really like Loomis in this one. I think he's really aging out. I think there was good passing of the guard potential between him and Tommy. Tommy could have filled that role as the person who was hunting down and really, trying to figure out everything about Michael. So I liked that. I thought that he did a great job as a mentor in this, someone that was ready to, at this point, die to ensure that Michael wouldn't kill anyone else, which he already showed in previous sequels, but now obviously he's old enough to make it a real thread in the movie. And the bad. Here, I'm going to show the scene at the beginning with his feet. This always really bothered me. Does this look weird to anyone else? Let me know in the comments, please. Why do they need any type of storyline with a baby? This movie was totally fine. You didn't need a storyline with a baby. You didn't need it to be Michael's baby, Jamie's baby. You didn't need it to be artificial insemination. You didn't need it to be involving them having relations. I don't know what happened. I don't want to know what happened. I don't know why the movie would even broach that as a subject. Even in 1995, that's just like, whoa, what are they even... Why do you want the fans or the audience to think about this? So let's just leave the baby out. Bringing Jamie back just to kill her seems kind of superfluous. I know that they wanted to make it. They wanted, again, this kind of ties to the baby. You didn't need the baby involved. She kicks off the story with the phone call, but they really could have kicked off the story in any other number of ways. So again, it seemed kind of superfluous just to launch this baby into the story, which, depending on which version of the movie you watch, the baby matters or doesn't matter. Why do they need to make the little kid evil too? I didn't understand that. Like, so Miss Blankenship is all of a sudden she's the mastermind behind everything in the series. Like, she can babysit a kid and turn them evil. I don't like that. I wish that wasn't the case. I don't think that should be the case. But this movie makes it almost seem like, oh, whoever happens to be babysat by this woman will be put under the influence of the cult of Thorn. Like, what? you have enough cool things going for this. You don't need to include things from, oh, Mikey Myers was I babysat him also. Like, you don't need to do that stuff. And it's either the endings are either the ritual, and then Paul Rudd puts rocks out and cuts his hand and stops Michael with like an invisible force field, or they go to like a nuclear baby goo Power Rangers type room filled with like all sorts of neon lights and weird test tube babies and stuff. Like, both endings of this movie are an absolute disaster. I don't know. It just crashes out and says we have no idea what we're doing. So all in all, ironically, I think it's actually the best of the three because it has the previous scenes leading up to the ending that are pretty awesome. I think Michael stalking, his brutality in this, the music, I think everything kind of fits. So I have to rate these backwards. I think 654 is my rating. So let me know in the comments. What do you guys think? Which which of these do you like the best? Which you like the worst? What do you think of my thoughts? Do you agree? The last part I will leave you with is the irony. People really give crap to the Thorn Trilogy for starting the whole supernatural thing. It's actually part two's fault, because part two is where they had Samhain written on the classroom wall, and Dr. Loomis says Samhain. So they started it. So if you really want to get mad, let's get mad at episode 2, which is what's coming next week. Next week, I'm going over the original sequels to Halloween. So Halloween 2 and Halloween 3. We'll be covering that October 24th next week. Please like, subscribe, and comment on my videos. And I will see you next week. Have a great time.